Iwaki is a talentless loser who spends his daily life simping on older women, but one day, a 12-year-old girl named Rizzle suddenly arrives at his house, claiming that she's his wife, which turns his life upside down. Three men mutter that they have found HM at last and tell Rizzle she'll meet him soon. A boy is hurriedly riding his bike. A while ago, his class learns that their teacher, Natsumi, is getting married. A girl asks the boy, Iwaki, what he's going to do now, so he annoyingly asks why it would matter to him. Presently, Iwaki tearfully rushes home and admits he never learns since he already had his heart broken by an older woman. When he opens the door to his house, a girl suddenly hugs him and calls him darling. As she gets off him, Iwaki asks who is, so she formally introduces herself as Rizzle and says she has arrived as his wife today. Shocked, Iwaki doesn't understand what she means, so she shows him a contract and three burly-looking men introduce themselves as her papas. Iwaki's parents sit down with Rizzle and her papas. Rizzle's papas reveal that it's been decided at the top level that Rizzle is going to be Iwaki's wife, so his parents try to explain that they can't afford having another family member. However, Rizzle's papas reveal that they're going to have Iwaki's father promoted, forgive the loan they took for their house, and give them extra allowance every month. Iwaki's parents instantly agree, but Iwaki doesn't. Iwaki annoyingly tells Rizzle he only likes older girls. In that case, Rizzle asks if he'll like her if she becomes older than him, so Iwaki agrees, but says it doesn't work like that. Hearing this, Rizzle's eyes fill up, seeing which her papas hurriedly hide inside another room. Confused, Iwaki wonders why they do that, but Rizzle's tears suddenly start causing explosions. Iwaki desperately asks her to stop crying and agrees to let her be his wife like a scaredy cat. Later, as he's about to go to sleep, he checks a photo of him and Natsumi from before. Rizzle enters the room and lies down to sleep next to him on the futon. However, Iwaki instantly declines and tells her to sleep in the cupboard. She smilingly says she's happy since he says he doesn't like her but still didn't want her to sleep in another room. Iwaki annoyingly says it's only because it's a pain when she starts crying. Hearing this, Rizzle slowly starts crying, so Iwaki tries to stop her, but it's too late and explosions start going off in his room. As the family is eating breakfast, Iwaki questions why the papas are still living here, so they say it's because they're Rizzle's papas and his parents agree with the logic. Iwaki leaves the house to go to school and Rizzle says she'll go with him too. However, he angrily grabs her and throws her into the house, saying she's responsible for that today. As Iwaki leaves, Rizzle sees his mum doing the laundry and decides to help her. Iwaki's mum asks Rizzle why she chose him, so she says she and Iwaki are bound by a red string of fate. Iwaki's mum agrees and says she hopes both Rizzle and Iwaki can take the time to understand each other, since he may not look like it, but he's a pretty shy boy. Hearing this, Rizzle decides to discover some of Iwaki's interests so she can be more attractive to him. At school, as Natsumi is teaching the class, Iwaki frustratingly wonders why she just had to look so beautiful and why he likes older women. Natsumi sees that he's daydreaming and asks him to explain the previous question, but he mutters that this is boring and gets up and leaves. In the house, Rizzle accidentally knocks over some of Iwaki's books, so she starts putting them back into the shelves, but as she's doing so, she comes across two photos and realizes this is what Iwaki is interested in. She goes to a papa and asks them to get her everything included in the list, so he agrees. Later, the papas wonder what in the world she could be planning to do with all that stuff, and as Iwaki arrives home, he heads to see his room to shockingly see Rizzle dressed in a sports uniform with ropes tied around her body. Shocked, he asks what in the hell his outfit is, because he's a straight man who only likes older women who can step on him. He quickly ties her up using the rope and goes to a courier company to ship her somewhere far, far away from him. However, as the plane is mid-air, Rizzle frees herself and jumps out of the plane, crashing back into Iwaki's room. Next up, she puts on an apron with nothing else and says she's wearing these outfits because that's what the photos in the book look like. Iwaki quickly checks the book and questions what these photos are. He goes to the living room with Rizzle and asks who put these photos here. They all learn that it was actually Iwaki's father who had hidden these photos in Iwaki's room to make sure his wife doesn't find them. Examining the photo, Iwaki's father and the papas start reminiscing about how hard it was to find love in their generation. Rizzle excitedly asks Iwaki how the outfit looks on her, so he annoyingly says her wearing the apron doesn't excite him at all. Hearing this, Rizzle slowly starts crying, so Iwaki tries to stop her, but it's too late and her tears cause explosions in the room. As Iwaki is sleeping, the door to the closet in which Rizzle is sleeping opens and she tumbles out of it. She sleepily gets closer to Iwaki and they both end up hugging each other in their sleep. As Iwaki wakes up, he realizes Rizzle is sleeping beside him and hurriedly asks what she's doing in his futon. She happily realizes this is the first time they've been in a futon together, and gets even more excited when Iwaki picks her up, but he throws her into the closet and orders her to stay in there. He says if she sleeps with him, he'll get the girly smell all over him and his manly scent will go away. Later, Rizzle goes to Iwaki's father to ask for help so that she can smell like a girl, and he can think of one solution. He takes her to a train filled with office workers, and later, when Iwaki returns home, Rizzle happily hugs him, but he annoyingly says she just smells like an old man. Next, Rizzle meets a guy at a bar and tries to dress like him, but that doesn't work either, and Iwaki just thinks she's weird. After this, Rizzle tries to wear different dresses like a pirate uniform or a football uniform, but it doesn't work either, so one of her papas takes her tennis training. As she's training with him, it doesn't work and she warily goes back to the house. Another one of her papas up a lengthy proposal for how she can have more of a manly scent, but she tiredly says she's done with this. Later, as Iwaki drops off his clothes for the laundry, his mother tells him to not be so hard on Rizzle, so he says he didn't do anything. As Iwaki's mother is hanging up the wet clothes, Rizzle learns that Iwaki always wears one specific type of shirt, so she decides to wear it to get the manly scent. However, when she approaches Iwaki while wearing his shirt, it still doesn't work, and he only gets more and more embarrassed by the fact that it's too big for her. He annoyingly says she will never be able to get rid of the girly scent since she's a girl, hearing which she starts crying, causing explosions in his room. As Rizzle is sadly sitting in Iwaki's room, she wishes she could be at school with him, but remembers how he said she can't come with him since she'd just be a nuisance. However, she suddenly realizes she can go to school if she doesn't look like Rizzle. As the papas and Iwaki's mom are playing a game, Rizzle shows up in 2 disguises, but they can immediately tell that it's her, so she goes back to try something else. They realize she might be trying to surprise them. She's lonely because of Iwaki being at school. They decide to act surprised when she enters with her next disguise and act like they don't know who she is. However, on her 3rd try, Rizzle only puts on a pair of goofy-looking glasses and wears her usual clothes. The papas and Iwaki's mom instantly recognize her, but they still act like they don't know who she is, so she happily heads to school. In school, Rizzle goes around checking every classroom, but she can't find Iwaki in any of them. In the last remaining classroom, a boy warily wonders why he has to learn all this stuff when he already knows it. He suddenly notices Rizzle outside the class and instantly falls for her. Meanwhile, Iwaki's class is outdoors for studying. However, when they arrive back at the school, Natsumi sees that something seems to be going on. Iwaki hears Rizzle's voice and instantly rushes in to see her riding around on a motorcycle and not being able to control it. She somehow rides the motorcycle to the roof and falls down from it, but before she can touch the ground, Iwaki manages to save her, surprising the boy from before. As Iwaki tells Rizzle off, she slowly starts crying, so he asks her to not cry here and hurriedly tries to go to different emptier places. However, none of them are devoid of people, so he ends up bringing her back to the house. Rizzle tells Iwaki she isn't crying now, and is happy that he's been carrying her for so long. Iwaki instantly drops her, but she exclaims that she wanted to be carried more, and starts crying, so he quickly starts running away as her tears cause explosions. Iwaki is dreaming of getting married to Natsumi, but he's suddenly woken up by Rizzle, with a smirk on her face, and excitedly says it's for a reason. At school, as Natsumi is teaching the class, Iwaki remarks that he might still have a chance, since it's not like Natsumi is married or anything. Natsumi suddenly says she's going to introduce a transfer student today, and reveals that Rizzle will be studying in their class, shocking Iwaki. The students point out that she's a grade schooler, so she can't be in middle school, but Natsumi says for some reason, she was able to skip all the classes in grade school and enter middle school directly. Rizzle loudly reveals that she's married to Iwaki and shows the entire class their marriage certificate. He hurriedly explains that he didn't agree to anything and she just filled it out by herself, but Natsumi cheerily says there's no need to be upset since a 15 and 12-year-old obviously can't get married. She tells Rizzle to sit next to Shimoto, who notices that Rizzle is carrying around a huge bag with her, but she refuses to reveal what's inside because it's a secret. Natsumi asks the class an answer to a question and Rizzle says she wants to give it, so Natsumi agrees. However, as Iwaki steps forward to write the answer down, Rizzle starts cheering for him. Iwaki quickly takes her outside and orders her to not do anything like that again. As Shimoto and Rizzle are walking around together during the sports period, the boy from before, Hoenn, runs into them and formally greets Rizzle. He says he's fallen for her because she's an angel and asks if he can introduce her to his household soon, but Rizzle isn't able to give an actual answer and collapses. During lunch break, Rizzle reveals to Shimoto that she spent the entire night working hard to make a huge lunch for Iwaki and happily brings it to him. However, Iwaki angrily turns around and accidentally hits the lunch boxes, causing them all to tumble to the ground. Shimoto angrily asks Iwaki what the problem is as Rizzle gets upset and falls unconscious. Later, after school has ended, Iwaki carries Rizzle home and she wakes up to see him sitting in front of her. He annoyingly says he only did it because he had to do and tells her to not stay up all night making lunch for him again, but she tearfully says she wants to, causing an explosion. Iwaki's mom goes outside the house to see that Rizzle is still here even though Iwaki left a while ago, so she says he gets mad at her when she clings to him and flies off on her jetpack. As Rizzle is flying on her jetpack, she and her papas work together to make her sit on the back seat of Iwaki's bicycle for a split second so that they can take a picture of her and Iwaki together. However, after taking the photo, Rizzle smashes into a billboard, and since wires for her jetpack are tied to Iwaki's bicycle, he ends up crashing as well and they get tied together until Siamoto unties them. Iwaki asks if Rizzle will do anything for him since she's wife, and when she confirms that she will, he asks her to go out with someone else. At school, Siamoto is surprised to learn that Iwaki asked Rizzle to go out with someone else, but she assures Rizzle that Iwaki actually has love for her in his heart. Rizzle runs into Howen, who once again starts proclaiming his love for her and saying she's an angel. He asks if she would want to spend the day with him, so she instantly agrees and happily runs off. Later, as Iwaki is heading home after school, he hears some other students talking about how much of a creep Howen is and how he's going to take advantage of Rizzle's innocence. As Howen takes Rizzle to his house, he shows off his various creepy collections, but Rizzle happily says they're great, surprising him since no girl has ever said that to him. A freak like him shouldn't be allowed anywhere near a girl. He then asks her to only wear her swimsuit so that he can make a model of her. Meanwhile at home, Iwaki can't stop thinking about what creepy things Howen might be doing to Rizzle, and he crashes into his house. He initially thinks Horn turned Rizzle into a life-size statue, but he reveals that he only took her measurements to make a statue. Surprised, Howen apologizes for the mix-up and Rizzle happily heads home with him, telling Howen she had a great day, hearing which he determinedly remarks that he's going to take her from Iwaki no matter what. Later, as Rizzle is taking a bath, Iwaki puts a towel outside for her, so she sees that he got jealous of Howen and happily smiles even though he denies it. As a girl is standing at a train station, she remarks that she has to do it today. In a flashback, as the girl is riding a bicycle, Iwaki runs in front of her to grab a ball and quickly tries to save her as she's about to crash. However, Iwaki realizes he accidentally grabbed her chest and hurriedly gets off of her. He mutters that she should get her tires fixed soon and walks away. Presently, the girl takes out a present and remarks that she has to give it to Iwaki now. Meanwhile, Iwaki notices that all the students around him seem to be taking his and Rizzle's marriage seriously and annoyingly walks off before the girl approaches Siamoto and asks if that was Iwaki. Later, at school, Iwaki looks depressed, so Rizzle hurriedly asks if he's feeling any pain, but he annoyingly tells her to get away and begs Howen to take her. However, Howen thinks this is some kind of trick and doesn't believe him. The girl from before enters the school and accidentally runs into Siamoto again, but she blushingly rushes away. However, Siamoto remembers that a year ago, as she and Iwaki were leaving school, the girl accidentally confessed to her instead of Iwaki. Siamoto hurriedly tells Rizzle she has a competitor, so Rizzle believes she'll just have to get jacked up and get as big as the girl, but Siamoto says that's not how it works. However, Rizzle asks her papas for help. Later, as Iwaki is leaving school on his bicycle, he accidentally crashes into the girl. She nervously introduces herself as Yakuza Kiyoko and admits she's 2 years older than him, but she says she likes him and asks him to go out with her if he doesn't mind dating someone older than him. However, she mutters that he's probably already dating someone else and suggests that they could go to the amusement park on Sunday. She hurriedly runs off before Rizzle arrives in a bigger, older body. She excitedly says she looks just like how he wanted her to look. However, a dog bites the pipe connecting her body to a truck and the real Rizzle falls on Iwaki. He annoyingly tells her to stop pulling these tricks and throws her into the robot, but she exclaims that it's really cramped and starts crying, which causes an explosion. As Kiyoko is walking away, she realizes she forgot to give Iwaki her gift this time too. Rizzle is excited since she and Iwaki are going on a date today, but Siamoto asks how she can be so calm when Iwaki plans to go with Kiyoko. Rizzle isn't worried and says they're just all going to go together, so it'll be more fun, and she even asks Siamoto if she wants to come. However, Siamoto informs her that Iwaki has already left or the train station to meet Kiyoko, so Rizzle sees that he's really impatient and quickly rides off on her bike with Siamoto. At the train station, Iwaki meets Kiyoko, who nervously thinks of giving him the present but isn't able to muster up the courage. Iwaki notices that there's something in her glasses and tells her to take them off to clean it, but she says she can't do that and just cleans them without taking them off. As they get on the train, Rizzle's papas back home realize she won't be able to make it in time and their connection is cut since the dog bites their cables, so they decide to initiate Plan R2. Rizzle and Siamoto get on the train and are surprised by how empty it is, but they don't know it's being driven by Rizzle's papas. While Kiyoko and Iwaki are having fun, he remarks that this really isn't so bad. As the train is going, one of Rizzle's papas looks something up about Kiyoko and realizes she's not an ordinary girl since she was chosen as a power-lifting representative but he learns something even more shocking and jumps out of the train. A while later, stores for Selena. The train suddenly comes to a stop and the Papas sadly realize they were trying to use the new track, but it wasn't fully built yet. Rizzle quickly jumps out of the train, but Huwen catches her in time, and she asks him to take her to the amusement park, so he says that's what he was planning to do and flies off with her. In the park, Kiyoko still isn't able to give Iwaki her gift, and they decide to ride the Ferris wheel. On the ride, she's too nervous to say much and hurriedly tries to stop something within herself. However, she suddenly takes off her glasses. Something seems to change within Kiyoko and she instantly sits down next to Iwaki. She asks if he knows that an average Ferris wheel ride lasts 20 minutes and mutters that 20s are enough to do a lot, so she starts taking off his pants as he tries to resist. I wouldn't do anything if it was me. However, Rizzle crashes down on the ride's roof and tries to stop her. Suddenly, Rizzle's papa from before, who learnt something about Kiyoko, arrives in a helicopter and shoots a rocket at Kiyoko, which transforms into a pair of glasses that land on her face. Kiyoko returns to her former self and admits she has a condition. She's able to keep it suppressed by wearing special glasses. She blushingly says she just wanted to give him his present today and reveals that it's a pair of pants since the ones he was wearing when he saved her got ripped. She says it's fine if he doesn't want to wear them since she wouldn't want to bother him, but Rizzle says it's alright and makes him put them on. Overwhelmed by how cute they look, Kiyoko happily runs out of the ride, and so does Iwaki, seeing which Rizzle starts crying and causes an explosion. As Iwaki is walking in school, he suddenly notices Natsumi crying and quickly rushes past the staff room so that she doesn't see him, but as she's leaving the school, he notices that she seems to look happy. The next morning, Iwaki annoyingly finds out that Kiyoko is going to cook breakfast for them every day and asks how she can do that when she's not family, so one of Rizzle's papas reveals that she's actually his daughter, so she's going to live beside their house and will be coming over a lot. At school, Iwaki learns that Natsumi won't be teaching for a few days since she has fallen ill and wonders what's wrong since she seemed fine yesterday. After school, Kiyoko wants to ask Iwaki to walk home with her, but he blitzes past her and reaches Natsumi's apartments. He goes up the stairs to see Natsumi having a quarrel with a man and just leaves flowers at her door for her. At home, Rizzle goes to get Iwaki, but he says he isn't hungry and keeps writing something. Rizzle picks up a crumpled piece of paper to see that he's writing to Natsumi. Shimoto tells her that Iwaki probably plans to propose to Natsumi since she is vulnerable right now and might say yes. Rizzle quickly reports this to her papas, who call for an urgent delivery and get a chain leash for Iwaki. However, Rizzle sees that Iwaki has suddenly disappeared from his bed and isn't able to tie it to his neck, so her papas apologize and admit it took too long because they had to negotiate with other countries to bring something like this here. Iwaki goes to Natsumi's house and asks her to come with him because he knows that she isn't sick. She's about to say something, but he grabs her hand and starts walking. He leads her along a forest path and takes her to a bench with a beautiful view of the sea. Natsumi happily thanks him for showing her such a view, and he cheers her up, so she acknowledges that she and her fiancé weren't trying to understand each other, and thanks Iwaki, who depressingly realizes he doesn't have a chance with her. Later, Rizzle reaches the spot to find Iwaki asleep and sits down beside him, saying she'll be with him forever. However, even in his sleep, Iwaki criticizes her, so she starts crying and causes an explosion. Iwaki wakes up to see Rizzle standing in front of him in a swimsuit, and she says they're gonna go on a summer vacation together, but he annoyingly throws her out the window. Rizzle crashes into Kyuko's room, which causes Yuko's glasses to fall off. When she learns what Rizzle is planning, she puts on a swimsuit as well and declares that Ecchi and Iwaki are going to enjoy a great summer vacation together. However, before she can go to Iwaki's room, her papa quickly fires a rocket at her and puts her glasses back on, returning her to her normal form. Rizzle still keeps daydreaming about getting closer to Iwaki this summer and asks Shimoto if she has someone she likes. Shimoto admits she does, but she can't muster the courage to go out with him. Rizzle decides to write a love letter for Shimoto since she's helped her out so much, and she happily agrees. The next day, Rizzle gives Shimoto the letter, but she doesn't have the guts to go give it to Huon, so Rizzle decides to do it for her. Upon seeing the love letter, Huon collapses in shock and happiness. Iwaki tells Shimoto and Rizzle about Huon, so they think he also loves Shimoto, and she gets ready for a date with him. As Shimoto is waiting for Huon to arrive at the designated location, Rizzle keeps an eye on her from afar to make sure everything goes well. However, when Huon steps out of the car, he wants to go on a date with Rizzle. Rizzle says she wanted him to go out with Shimoto, not her, but he says he isn't interested in her and only wants to date her. Shocked, Shimoto asks Rizzle if she and Huon have been in a relationship, but Rizzle says that's not it and isn't able to explain herself. Seeing this, Shimoto tearfully says she hates her and runs away. Rizzle asks Huon why he can't just date Shimoto, so he tells her to bring him an item precious to him, and only then will he consider doing it. Rizzle goes to the snowy mountains with her papist to find the item for him. She isn't able to do so, and she depressingly apologizes to Tsumoto. Later, Rizzle wakes up in a futon and sees Tsumoto in front of her. Tsumoto apologizes for getting carried away and saying all that mean stuff to her. She swears to do her best and be brave even if it doesn't work out. Later, Iwaki is sitting beside a sleeping Rizzle and is surprised that she did all that for a friend, so Rizzle wakes up and asks if he's impressed. She asks for a kiss, but he hurriedly keeps declining, so she starts crying and causes an explosion. Rizzle a bunch of books containing spots for a summer vacation since she wants to go have fun with Iwaki, but he annoyingly declines and leaves. Later at school, she tells Natsumi she wants to spend time with Iwaki this summer vacation, so Natsumi tells her about the Kissing Rocks, a location where people race to and the first couple that gets there has to kiss. Hearing this, Rizzle excitedly says she wants to go, so Natsumi agrees to take her there since she's heading back home in a few days. Later in class, Rizzle tells Iwaki about the Kissing Rocks and says she wants to go back there with him, but he annoyingly declines. She gets tearful and is about to cry, so Iwaki hurriedly asks her to not cry here and reluctantly agrees. A ninja reports to Howin about what Rizzle is planning to do this summer vacation, and he decides to go to the Kissing Rocks as well for his maiden. Meanwhile, Kiyoko asks her father to buy a swimsuit for her since she wants to go to the Kissing Rocks with Iwaki. However, her father reveals that she already has one since she bought it when her other form had taken over her body. As the Papas are walking back home, they run into Rizzle, who smilingly reveals that she's going to head back home if she still isn't able to kiss Iwaki during this mission, since she's learned from Tsumoto that you have to be brave when in love. Stunned, the Papas hurriedly head to the headquarters and report to the Mamas that Rizzle plans to return if she can't kiss Iwaki. However, the Mamas suddenly slap them all in question if they don't know how big of a deal kissing someone is to a girl. Only true weebs know how hard it is to find a girl. They order the Papas that Rizzle should be given the best chances for kissing Iwaki and nothing should interfere with her plans. However, when the Papas leave, the Mamas remark that none of the kids they have sent have been able to kiss someone of the opposite sex, and they wonder what would happen after Rizzle has kissed Iwaki. The next morning, Tsumoto, Iwaki, and Rizzle meet Natsumi to board the train, but Kiyoko suddenly arrives as well since she wants to go with them. Howin accidentally runs into them too and decides to go with them too. However, after boarding the train, they keep changing their vehicles until finally getting on a plane. As they're flying, Iwaki asks why they couldn't have just come by plane in the first place, and Natsumi says they're supposed to skydive from here, so they all jump out. As everyone is eating, a woman warmly welcomes them to the island of infinite passions again, and tells Iwaki he might be able to marry a girl from their island since he landed without a scratch. They all decide to go have fun on the beach, but Kiyoko is too nervous since she'll have to wear a swimsuit in front of everyone. As they all head into the water, Tsumoto tells Rizzle she's decided to keep trying, so Rizzle happily agrees. Later, as they're in the hot bath, Rizzle tells Tsumoto she was inspired by how resilient was in her love for Hewin, so even if she wins, she'll congratulate her. That night, while everyone's asleep, Iwaki is watching the Kissing Rocks before Rizzle approaches him. She asks him to kiss her if she wins the race tomorrow or else. She decides to not say anything else and heads back as Iwaki wonders what's up with her. The next day, they all start the race and the Papas see that Kiyoko is in the lead, but her swimsuit accidentally comes off, so she starts hurriedly rushing back to shore. However, she runs into Howin on the way, which causes her to lose her glasses. Kiyoko's other personality takes Howin back to land and gets ready to revive him through CPR, but Tsumoto hurriedly arrives and asks if she wasn't after Iwaki. She says that's only when she has her glasses on, and they start fighting but end up hitting Hewin instead. Meanwhile, as Rizzle is hurriedly swimming towards the Kissing Rocks, the Papas offer to help her out and increase her speed. However, she says it's because she truly loves Iwaki that she's going to do this by her strength and not with someone else's help. Despite this, the Mamas order the Papas to help her out, but they decline and swim off in their submarines, admitting that their pensions are going to be cut because of this stunt. As Rizzle is about to get to the Kissing Rocks, a big wave suddenly causes her to drown. Iwaki rushes back and hurriedly starts swimming to save her. Later, as Iwaki and unconscious Rizzle are on the Kissing Rocks, he gets ready to use CPR to revive her. Rizzle happily hugs him, but he annoyingly orders her to not do that. Hearing this, she starts crying and causes an explosion. As all the kids are at Natsumi's wedding, Rizzle sees that Iwaki is looking really depressed and asks what's wrong before Tsumoto kicks him in the face and calls him a disgrace. She says she already knows that he and Rizzle kissed each other on the Kissing Rocks, but he says that's not it, and he was just trying to revive her. However, Rizzle says he doesn't need to be so shy now that they've finally had their first kiss and become a proper couple. Iwaki angrily says he's going to keep looking for older women he finds attractive and will keep ignoring her. Later, Rizzle finds a capsule, but she isn't able to open it no matter how hard she tries, so she just drops it in front of her. However, the capsule turns her into an older cat girl. Rizzle happily realizes she's finally become an adult that Iwaki will like, so she goes around the house trying to look for him. However, when she finally finds him, she's reverted to her normal child form, so she wonders this was just a dream. Her papas tell her it was actually real, since the mamas back at HQ have made a special product for her that makes her older, but it only lasts 3 minutes. They show her a gacha machine she can keep taking these capsules out of, and Rizzle turns into a maid. She goes to the town with her papas and takes another capsule to become an older girl. When she approaches Iwaki, he doesn't recognize her and starts getting nervous around her. However, Rizzle keeps having to go back every time she meets him since her time keeps running out, so she isn't able to get Iwaki to confess to her. After a long day, she finally meets him in front of a fountain, so he blushingly asks her to go on a date with him and runs away just as Rizzle's time ends, and she reverts back to her child form. Later in the house, Rizzle cheerily tells Iwaki she can't wait for their date on Sunday, but he annoyingly says he has way better plans and none of them involve her, so she mutters that he won't be able to resist her adult charm. Rizzle goes to a temple to pray for a good date on Sunday and quickly takes a capsule to transform into her adult form. Iwaki enters the shrine as well, but he quickly hides when he sees the girl. He happily remarks that they might be bound together by fate after all, but the girl shockingly transforms into Rizzle, so he angrily realizes she tricked him. As Rizzle is getting ready for her date, her papas show her a remote-controlled bag, since her date will probably go on for 5 hours, and she'll have to use around 100 capsules to keep herself in her older form. However, they realize they never developed that many capsules and apologize to Rizzle since they failed her. One papa suddenly reveals that there is something, but the others quickly shut him down. Later, as Rizzle sneakily enters the HQ, she remembers her conversation with the papas when they revealed that there is a pill that keep her old for a longer period of time, but they're not sure of what potential side effects it'll have. The next day, the papas admit they can't do anything about it now since Rizzle has already taken the pill, so she excitedly asks them to give Iwaki a timetable for their date since she can't give it to him. However, when the papas give Iwaki the timetable, he reveals that he knows it's actually Rizzle. They tell him that he should go to the date since Rizzle has taken a potentially fatal medicine just to make him happy. Iwaki angrily asks if his feelings don't matter and runs off. As Rizzle is waiting for Iwaki, he's sitting on the bench and stares at the timetable she made. Rizzle believes Iwaki must have already gone to their first spot and must be waiting for her, and she spends the entire day this way, hoping Iwaki will show up, but he never does. Later, when Iwaki returns home, he's surprised to see that Rizzle still hasn't come back, but he believes she'll be fine. As it gets late, Rizzle is sadly sitting on a park bench when she suddenly hears Iwaki looking for her. She sees him on the other side of the road and happily rushes towards him, but she falls, so Iwaki rushes forward to catch her before a truck suddenly appears behind them. Both of them are going to get ice-cade into a fantasy world now. Rizzle wakes up in a hospital bed and wonders what happened before her papas happily see that she's awake. They tell her she's been unconscious for 3 days, so she asks about Iwaki, but they aren't able to give an answer. Rizzle hurriedly runs through the corridors and enters another room to see that Iwaki is unconscious. Iwaki is dreaming of being in a train with the rest of the classmates, but he mutters that something is missing. Simoto asks if she should call Natsumi older and questions when he'll let go of his older woman fetish, but he annoyingly says that's not it. Rizzle realizes this was all because of her and desperately asks Iwaki to wake up, swearing that she won't ever ask him to go on a date with her or even be attracted to her. Iwaki keeps remembering his memories with Rizzle, but he isn't able to make out who the girl was. Natsumi asks what's wrong, so he says there was a 12-year-old girl always with him, but she cheerily says that's absurd. Iwaki suddenly spots someone small running to another carriage of the train and starts chasing her. He keeps remembering his memories from when he was a child and frustratingly wonders why he's always liked older women. As a young Iwaki is walking, he suddenly spots a girl on the road that is about to be hit and hurriedly saves her. As he's laying on her, Iwaki suddenly remembers everything. He hears Rizzo's voice calling out to him and chases after it before suddenly waking up. Iwaki mutters that he had a weird dream where he saved her when he was young, but Rizzle says that actually happened and she's been waiting for him since then. The mamas tell Iwaki that when he saved her from that accident, they sensed something changing in Rizzle's cells and realized she could only age when she was given true love, which is why they had her live with him. Iwaki realizes that deep in his heart, he had been waiting for an older version of Rizzle all along and angrily chucks her out since all the trauma he's experienced with older women was because of her. Later in the house, the papas say Iwaki's behavior towards Rizzle hasn't changed much, but Iwaki's mother doesn't think so. As the entire class is on their way to a school trip, The girls gossip about a rumor which states that if a boy carries a girl like a princess and the innkeeper takes a picture of them, they are destined to be together forever. Hearing this, Siamoto's blushing and decides to get closer Howen. When they arrive, Siamoto, Iwaki, and Rizzle are strolling together before Annoying decides to join them and acts like it's just because the other boys aren't as smart as him, even though the reality is that he doesn't have any friends. As they're walking, Siamoto wonders about how she should be attractive to Howen, so other girls from her class tell her to dress like Rizzle. Siamoto reluctantly complies with this, but that doesn't work either since Howen is still too attracted to Rizzle, so the girls tell Siamoto her only chance is to wear different underclothes Howen likes. She embarrassingly agrees, and as soon as Howen notices Siamoto, he asks if she would like to come with him to somewhere private, so she blushingly agrees. As Rizzle and Iwaki are standing outside a shrine, Howen flirts with Siamoto for a bit, but she realizes he's not actually interested in her. As he starts to leave, she questions why he likes Rizzle so much, so he declares that she can't just imitate someone and expect him to fall for her, because Rizzle has something she doesn't. She's 12. He announces that he only likes 12-year-old girls, so Siamoto starts arguing with him and questions if he thinks Rizzle will always stay 12 when she's going to become 13 on her birthday. Stunned, Howen refuses to accept this and insists that Rizzle will never age, so Siamoto frustratingly kicks him off the bridge. Later, as the girls are taking a bath, Siamoto remarks that she has to open Howen's eyes to the truth and make him fall in love with her. Rizzle asks Iwaki for a shampoo, and he doesn't answer for a bit, throws the bottle to her side after a few moments, so she smilingly takes it. Siamoto meditatively says she'll make sure Howen isn't attracted to Rizzle anymore, but as she's heading back, she overhears Howen's ninja giving him a love potion that will last until sunset. The next day, Howen keeps trying to get Rizzle to drink the juice, but Siamoto keeps intervening. However, after she drops a ton of rice cakes, causing a lot of deer to rush towards them, Howen accidentally drops the juice. Natsumi finds the juice and decides to drink it since she's thirsty, but she instantly collapses. Shocked, Iwaki hurriedly decides to carry her to the bus, believing she's ill, as the ninja informs Howen that he had prepared another juice for the worst-case scenario. This time, Howen manages to get Rizzle to drink it and keeps asking her to show him her underclothes, and Siamoto realizes he'll be corrupted now. In the bus, Iwaki tries to wake Natsumi up, but she starts seducing him. As Iwaki warily realizes he won't be able to resist her, Siamoto hurriedly informs him that she isn't her usual self. She drank a love potion, and Howen used it on Rizzle too, so he might do something to her. Hearing this, Iwaki hurriedly rushes out of the bus and confronts Howen, who proudly declares that Rizzle's body and soul now belong to him. Iwaki braces himself for the worst, but he sees that Howen just kept asking to see Rizzle's underclothes. As the sun sets, both Rizzle and Natsumi turn back to normal, and they don't remember what happened, so Iwaki decides to not tell them anything. However, Rizzle notices a lipstick mark on Iwaki's clothes, so he hurriedly tries to explain, but she believes he's cheating on her, starts crying, and causes an explosion. The Papas corner Kiyoko in an alleyway and order her to hand over the top-secret remote-controlled headgear, so she sadly complies. They ask if she still wants to go after Iwaki, but she declines and says she's given up on her chances with him, so they decide to let her keep it. However, as they're leaving, they suddenly realize they're wearing the headgear, and Kiyoko orders them to go to a country far away, so they instantly agree as Kiyoko mutters that she won't give up that easily. When the class arrives at the hotel, a mysterious woman suddenly slaps some headgear on Iwaki's head and tells him to wear it at all times since he's their privileged guest. However, as she's running away, she accidentally runs into Siamoto, who realizes she felt the same way when she crashed into Kiyoko. Later, as Iwaki and Rizzle are walking, he's suddenly given the order to head to where Kiyoko is, so he instantly takes off. Siamoto sees Kiyoko flirting with Iwaki. Kiyoko asks Iwaki to take a bath with him, so he instantly agrees. A while later, Rizzle sees Iwaki loudly proclaiming his love for Kiyoko and starts crying, causing an explosion, which makes the headgear fall off of Iwaki's head and onto Siamoto's. As Kiyoko is waiting for Iwaki, she's shocked to see Siamoto behind her before the headgear is suddenly ripped off of Siamoto's head, and she blushingly realizes she can never get married now. The ninja gives the remote control and the headgear to Howen, who quickly summons Rizzle towards him so that they can become true lovers. However, the Papas start rushing towards him as well, and they all crash into each other, throwing the remote into Siamoto's hands. She thinks Howen is wearing it and quickly calls him over, but it's actually the hotel's dog and 3 of Siamoto's friends, who declare that they're going to go all the way. Later, as Siamoto and her friends are warily lying on top of each other, Kiyoko picks up the remote, puts the headgear on Iwaki's head, and quickly asks the innkeeper to take a photo of them. However, Rizzle jumps in front of them, which makes it seem like Iwaki is actually carrying her instead of Kiyoko. Iwaki decides to go to bed, so Kiyoko and Rizzle chase after him. Howen chases after them. Shimoto chases after him and the dog chases after her, seeing which Natsumi cheerily says it looks like everyone's enjoying themselves and receives a call from her husband. The mammoths suddenly arrive at Iwaki's house and reveal that Rizzle's growth started again when he kissed her on the kissing rocks, but because she took the unfinished drug from the laboratory to temporarily get older, her growth has stinted again. Thus, if he wants Rizzle to start growing again, he'll have to do the adult C with her. Rizzle is excited, but Iwaki instantly declines. His parents admit they're a bit too young for something like that, but the mammoths warn him that they could revoke all their privileges, so they instantly agree. As Iwaki annoyingly leaves, the mammoths tell his parents that they all need to try and get Iwaki to do the adult C with Rizzle. However, the papas tell them to not worry and leave it to them. As the papas are discussing what they should do with Rizzle's parents, and Selena, they admit they won't be able to find another job if they get laid off at this stage. They try to get Rizzle to wear different kinds of cosplays with different lines to awaken something in Iwaki, but it doesn't work, and he keeps throwing her out of his room, annoyingly wondering what's gotten into them all. Iwaki's father tries to help, but he isn't very helpful either. A while later, the mamas remark that the papas are useless, but they suddenly hear something happening in Iwaki's room and excitedly realize he's doing it. However, Kiyoko's other personality drags Iwaki into the futon, and as they're wrestling with each other outside, Rizzle, who is stuck in the keyboard, desperately asks him to not do the adult C with his mistress. Little does she know that WrestleMania is happening outside. Once Iwaki and Kiyoko are done wrestling, Rizzle starts crying and causes a massive explosion. Later, as the mamas leave, Rizzle apologizes to Iwaki, but he signals something to her, so she sleeps beside him on the futon. As Iwaki's mom is in the mall, the mamas see that the target is getting closer to their stall, and she suddenly wins a free trip for two. Later, as Iwaki's mom and dad are leaving, they say they're sure he'll take care of Rizzle, and Iwaki's dad just tells him to take a look at the desktop later. Seeing them leave, Kiyoko suddenly realizes Iwaki and Rizzle might get closer if they're alone, so she quickly calls Hao in so that they can team up and stop Iwaki and Rizzle. A barrier suddenly grows outside Iwaki's house, making it so no one can enter or leave. A voice says that when a man and a woman are stuck inside a house, they're most capable of doing the adult C. Rizzle gets excited and happily asks Iwaki if he knows what the adult C is, but he annoyingly says he doesn't and walks upstairs. However, in their room, a present suddenly appears with a game that makes Rizzle and Iwaki grow closer. However, he just keeps getting more and more embarrassed until he quits. An AC suddenly pops out of the wall and starts cooling the room, so Rizzle suggests that they should get closer, but he hurriedly leaves. In the other room, their table is unexpectedly replaced by a kotatsu, and even though it just makes Rizzle fall asleep, it also makes Iwaki get closer to her. Later, Rizzle tells Iwaki it'll take a while for dinner to be ready, so he goes to take a bath. Rizzle wants to enter and bath with him, but he declines. However, she starts crying, so he hurriedly agrees. Meanwhile, Kiyoko and Hoenn have partnered up to form a giant mech and are rushing towards Iwaki's house to stop him. As Rizzle is helping Iwaki bath, he gets more and more embarrassed until he hurriedly tells her to leave and remarks that this is getting really bad since Rizzle is slowly starting to get older. The mammoths notice that Iwaki's phenylethylamine levels have already exceeded measurable limits, so they say this is perfect since he'll reach adult C in no time this way. Iwaki tells his body to calm down since he and Rizzle may be a couple, but it's only because they were forced to do that and not by his own choice. Rizzle invites them to another room, and Iwaki is surprised to see that she's decorated it as she happily wishes him a Merry Christmas. As they eat dinner, Rizzle keeps trying to flirt with Iwaki, so he embarrassingly asks her to stay away from him and decides to watch some TV. However, it keeps showing some suggestive content, so he quickly puts some planks in front of it to avoid Rizzle watching it. He notices that Rizzle's wish for Christmas is to do that adult C with him, but she adds that while she'd want that, what's even more important to her is that he either stays happy and in good spirits. Iwaki reads a magazine and keeps thinking about what the mama said, so he tells Rizzle he's ready to do the adult C with her tonight. In Iwaki's room, after he and Rizzle take off their clothes, they lie down on the futon, but she thinks that's all she needed to do and instantly falls asleep, shocking Iwaki, who smilingly mutters that this might be ok. However, the mamas suddenly appear in front of him and declare that this is not okay, revealing that they've been watching him the entire time and telling him to put on some clothes while Rizzle is peacefully asleep. Rizzle and Iwaki go to the temple, but as they're heading back, she suddenly falls down the stairs. Iwaki is about to catch her, but he accidentally stops himself. Back at HQ, the mamas remark that there hasn't been any development in Iwaki and Rizzle's relationship, and rumor has it that other nations have redoubled their research efforts, but all they can do now is watch and wait. In school, Shimoto is shocked to learn that Rizzle did the adult C with Iwaki and asks how it felt, so Rizzle cheerily says it was really fun, surprising her. However, Rizzle mutters that Iwaki has been giving her the colder since then, so Shimoto believes it's because he's a bit scared since he took the lead and is waiting for her to approach him. Hearing this, Rizzle spends the entire day trying to approach Iwaki but annoyingly keeps avoiding her. As Tsumoto is walking around, she suddenly sees Kiyoko giving Howen a present and questions how he could betray her like that, but he happily declares that he has given up his love for 12-year-olds and has found his real goddess. Infuriated, Tsumoto beats him up and declares that all men are the same since they all just look for big chests and girls. She goes to Rizzle and vents about Harrowin for a bit before Rizzle reveals that Iwaki is still avoiding her. Hearing this, Tsumoto angrily writes up a letter and tells Rizzle to show him that and to follow her instructions word for word to get him to stop avoiding her. Rizzle confronts Iwaki and declares that she's frustrated by the fact that he keeps getting away from her, so if he doesn't love her, he should just sign his name on the divorce letter. Iwaki agrees and tells her to stay away from him now that they've been divorced, shocking Rizzle. Seeing this, the American HQ fires a missile. As Iwaki is heading back home, he's suddenly attacked by a missile, and a girl named Lux happily calls him her darling. However, Iwaki hurriedly rushes back home only to see 3 other girls calling him his life. Shocked, he angrily tells them to get out, hearing which they start crying and cause simultaneous explosions. The mamas recognize all the girls from the other countries and learn from the papas that Rizzle slipped away during the confusion and has gone missing. When Iwaki wakes up, all the girls from the different countries start fighting over him, so he angrily declares that he wants nothing to do with them all and calls them stupid, so they start crying and cause explosions. Later at school, Tsumoto asks Iwaki why he took the divorce registration form seriously. Surprised, he asks how she knows about Hat and questions if she was the one who put that idea into Rizzle's head, so she apologizes and admits she was in a weird place of mind since she'd just beaten the living daylights out of a guy. However, she says it's his fault since Rizzle felt really sad because he was acting so cold to her after Christmas. Hearing this, Iwaki realizes Rizzle still has feelings for him and happily remarks that she'd never leave him for real. As they sit down for the start of class, Natsumi reveals that 4 transfer students are going to be joining them from today, and Iwaki is shocked to see that it's the 4 girls who introduced themselves as his wives. He hurriedly says he never accepted that, but they say they're here for his acceptance. Iwaki annoyingly gets out of the class and leaves for his house. However, the girls suddenly start chasing him with the help of their papas, so he desperately tries to avoid them. As the girls are fighting over him, a huge robot suddenly appears behind them and Rizzle steps out of it. The girls ask why she's here when she's already given him a divorce, so Rizzle takes out of her divorce registration form and rips it into 2, seeing which the girls sadly accept defeat and leave. Iwaki happily approaches Rizzle, but she apologizes for ever coming here and rips their marriage registration form into 2 before saying goodbye to him. The papas remember how Rizzle told them that she wasn't going to return to Iwaki since he instantly signed the divorce registration form and must have started to hate her since he had been avoiding her since Christmas. So she's going to try and look for a new love and wants them to delete everything about Iwaki from inside her. At school, Tsumoto keeps trying to ask Iwaki about what happened, but he doesn't answer and just looks away as the other students gossip about him. Later, as the papas are sitting in a car outside Iwaki's house, they notice him coming out and follow him as he cycles away since it doesn't look like he's going to school. For the next few days, Iwaki keeps going to stand in these random spots, and his classmates gossip that he's standing at pickup spots on purpose to find someone else after leaving Rizzle. Meanwhile, Kiyoko blushingly tells Howen that she'd like to move next to his house, and he happily says he'd love that. The papas show Rizzle that Iwaki has been going around, standing at random pickup spots, so she should stop being in love with him so much like a loser. However, after taking a look at the map, Rizzle suddenly realizes something. In the park at night, Iwaki rarely goes to sit on a bench and wonders why he keeps doing this. He slowly starts crying as the paper with Rizzle's timetable of their date flies away from his hand. Rizzle catches it and slowly approaches Iwaki, so he happily rushes forward and hugs her. He takes out a new marriage registration form from his pocket and says the old one was pretty roughed up anyways, so they should submit this together. They slowly get closer and kiss each other, so Rizzle starts crying, but this time, her tears don't explode. A year later, while the others are having fun in their lives, Rizzle sits behind Iwaki on his bicycle and they happily go to school together.